After 6 years of looking at a bunch of different franchises in the B2B space, none of them really fit.
Entrepreneurship is the way to go. And obviously, that's not necessarily the way to go for everyone.
The faster you can get to replication, the faster you can get to making more money.
Business is very simple to understand, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
When people told us things, we trusted, but we didn't verify, and that got us into a lot of trouble. Our goal is to be a $50 million company.
Welcome to the podcast From Cold to Close. My name is Saeed and I'm the founder here at SRC Growth. We are a company that works with professional services firms from around the world to help them increase their revenue and profitability by acquiring new clients. My guest today is Gabrielle Mills, co-founder and president of Sourced, a leading full-service back-office solutions firm. Gabrielle built the company from the ground up with multiple business units, including accounting, marketing, human resources, administrative services, and talent acquisition. She is a seasoned entrepreneur with a proven track record in scaling small businesses into profitable companies. And prior to founding Sourced, Gabrielle worked in corporate marketing and branding at IHG, supporting high-profile partners like PGA Tour, CMT, and other global hospitality brands. Gabrielle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Saeed.
No, I'm really looking forward to today's conversation, especially just rattling through your bio there. It's always nice to see a seasoned entrepreneur having someone who's experienced in so many different fields. So I'm really interested to hear what you're able to share today. And I'm sure the viewers and listeners will love to hear and get the insights that you have. But I always like to start off every podcast with a starting point, and the starting point being your background and what took you to where you are today, how you got to where you are today.
Love that question because I'm with you. I love to know everyone's stories and I love to know how they got to where they are.
Yeah.
The more gritty, the better. Knew that I was destined for entrepreneurship early on. I was at the end of my college career when it kind of hit me, but I went into college not really knowing what I wanted to do. I actually went in to be a business major and dropped it because I didn't want to take accounting, which I now have a business that does accounting. So
Wow.
that's kind of the great joke of my life. And so I thought that entrepreneurship was going to be something down the road for me. I was going to go to corporate, have a nice 401k, 2.5 kids, and then dial back and do the entrepreneurship thing. But my business partner and I, we just couldn't help but jump right in. We didn't know what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to be B2B among a couple of things. So we did what a lot of aspiring business owners do. And we first looked at franchises to buy a model. And after 6 years of looking at a bunch of different franchises in the B2B space, none of them really fit with what we were hoping for, what we wanted. Nothing like got us excited. And so then after about 6 years, I'm still working my corporate job. We have a conversation of like, okay, we're at this crossroads. Do we say that that was a really fun experience? By the way, my business partner is my mom. So do we say that mothers and daughters never get to have that experience and just leave that in the past and say that was really cool? Or do we take this money that we were going to buy into a franchise and just invest it in ourselves doing something? That's what we chose to do. And so we went out to business owners and asked them where they were underserved, what they needed, and what they would do again if they were start all over again. And we put all their answers up on a whiteboard that's actually still in our office a couple doors down. And that is where Sourced came from. So at 26, I quit my job cold turkey. Everyone in the job thought I was absolutely nuts. Probably because I was. I got rid of my apartment, moved into my mom's basement,
Wow.
and we basically built Sourced in the bedroom of her basement. I think I was there for 4 years or so, building this business with her.
Absolutely love that story, and I love the fact that there's that gritty undertone to everything that you're doing there in terms of having that cushy corporate job, but then also transitioning into the entrepreneurial side of things. And I love the fact that your business partners with your mum. It's like a mum. They always say son and pop shop, right? And it's a and so I love that, and I really wanted to really Sourced is obviously touching on so many different areas of business, right? And as I mentioned at the start, you work on a fractional basis with accounting, with marketing, with HR, administrative services, and then also talent acquisition. So in terms of How do you help your clients? And obviously, you mentioned that you went out and found what businesses needed. Where was that starting block? What was the first step? What was the first service that you added? And then how did you build to where you are today?
So, in order to be, I'm an incredibly honest and transparent person, Saeed.
Love
So,
it.
like, I'm just going to tell you and your listeners exactly how it was, no sugarcoating.
Yes.
Chrissy, who is my business partner, I call her Chrissy because when we're in a working setting, this is my mom. We knew business and we knew people. We did not know accounting. I did have a background, but corporate marketing is very different than small business marketing. Neither one of us knew HR. Neither one of us knew recruiting. We didn't know anything. We started this blind, cold, and we knew almost nothing. About 2 years in, we had an accountant look at us going, "You started an accounting company and you don't know how to do accounting?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure did. Yeah, that's exactly what we did." So when we started with 4 services. 3 of them we have today. 2 of them we don't anymore. I'm sorry. 1 of them we don't have anymore. We have 5. What we started with is we had marketing. So that stayed. We had what was then bookkeeping, which is now grown into accounting. We had office administration, which is now administrative support. And we actually had personal assistants. I
Wow.
thought that that was going to flop. Chrissy had a really interesting idea that business people that were really busy in business, they also needed help in their personal lives. So we wanted to be able to bridge that gap.
Wow.
It didn't work. Well, it could have worked. It's an entirely separate business. And frankly, it was too hard, had too much liability. We killed it almost immediately. So then we had 3 business units that we did for about a year.
Mm.
And we did that is a lot of companies do this where they create a matchmaking model where they have the team of people and they have the clients and they match them together. I think that model is great. It was not for us. We
Okay.
lost a lot of control. We couldn't control quality. There were some people had different experiences than others, and we needed to learn from each other. We learned pretty early on that instead of the matchmaking model, we needed to truly be an accounting firm, a marketing agency, an administrative support firm. And we had to build those things as separate companies. So that's where we started to go. Or talent acquisition came next. Current client of ours that was doing administrative support and accounting said they needed help hiring. We had never hired before except for ourselves. And we were like, how hard could that be? So we just did it for him for $500,
Wow.
the cheapest recruiting
Wow.
fee in the world,
That's crazy.
because we had no idea what we
Yeah.
were doing. Found him somebody really great, and then we were like, hey, we could make this into another business unit. We charge double, and we charge $1,000. And if you know anything about recruiting, that was basically free. A service that came in was HR. We needed to find the right partner that would help support us for HR, but also could support our clients. That came on board around year 5 or 6.
Okay.
So now we have all 5. We flirted with the idea of bringing on IT services as a part of our company. We decided to not do that. We've had other questions on like, are you going to do advisory support? Are you going to do legal? Are you going to do, and honestly, 5 is enough. It's too many. We love our business. We love our model, but our model is perfect the way it is.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for me, the way I think of it, and just operating one business is hard enough. And thinking about operationally, that would be having 5 service lines, having 5 different mechanisms, for having 5 different things to be managing. Sounds like a very tough job. And so,
It is. And if I'm being honest with you, Saeed, I don't know if I would do it again that way. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's a really sexy business model. I think it's really cool. It was really innovative at the time, still is. There's not a lot of companies doing this, but it is what we didn't know then that we know now is it truly is starting 5, well, that time 3 businesses at the same time. And we could have grown potentially faster and better if we didn't have our concept split. But at the same time, we wouldn't be the company that we
yeah,
are. And so we weren't willing to trade that off. We knew that that was a risk. We took the trade off. But
yeah.
yes, when we talk about a gritty story,
Mm.
our story of Sourced is wrought with mistakes, tears, all-nighters, like every mistake you can think you could make. It's just we have all the horror stories and all the skeletons to get us where we are today.
I can imagine, and I love hearing these things because I think entrepreneurship is often glamorized, and you see it a lot nowadays in terms of you see YouTube videos, you see clips, you see anything on X, on LinkedIn. Entrepreneurship is the way to go, and obviously that's not necessarily the way to go for
Yeah,
everyone in the world. Understanding the pitfalls that come with that journey is the big thing, and I can speak from my own experience in the sense that every single day you're thinking of something that might go wrong rather than, and also thinking about things that need to go right, and also thinking about all the things you need to do, also managing people. There's so many things involved,
so many.
and so it's always interesting to hear that element of the story. In terms of then your, obviously, if someone was to just start a business right now, right, and if they were to go into their basement of their mum's house, right, and they go, you know what, I'm going to take out a laptop and I'm just going to crack on. How do you get that first client? What do you do to try and what did you do to get that first client, and how would someone go about doing
Excellent question. I love that question.
that?
I haven't heard it very often. And what that is what people want to know. How do you get that first client? For us in our business, we've been open for 9 years. We have only survived on word of mouth and referrals. This entire business is based on relationships and the quality of the relationships that we build with our team, but also the ones that we build with our clients. No traditional marketing has been done for us in the last 9 years.
Mm,
The way that we got our first clients is we went outside into networking meetings and associations and anywhere that business people gathered, and we just made friends with people.
yeah.
We helped where we could help, whether we were paid for it or not. We connected people with other resources that we met, and we formed really good relationships with people, and that created trust. And eventually, my friends that I had met out in these associations and chambers and networking events, my friends became my clients. And then they referred their friends, and those friends became clients, and so on and so forth. And so I think traditional marketing has a place and it's really important, but I think you can never go wrong with building really good relationships to build your business. And that's how we did it. Especially in the first 6 years, we did literally nothing but that.
And I absolutely love that. And you always see a lot of things on the internet about how to get your, like, you see, you should try ads, you should try this, you should try that, you should send emails out, you should go on LinkedIn, you should do that. But nothing beats good old-fashioned relationship building, right? And we always, when we take on a client, we always talk about the two key pillars that are involved with any kind of transaction that's taken place between two businesses or two individuals, and that is trust and relationship. You mentioned both things there in your answer, and it's like as soon as you bridge the gap of trust and you create a relationship there, you have more of a chance of converting that opportunity. So I think it's really interesting you mentioned that.
I think it's important to say too, Saeed, that that model doesn't always work for everybody. Like it depends on the business that you're in.
Mhm.
And if you're really smart in your sales and marketing, you need to have a diversified approach. That's where we are now. We can't grow beyond where we are now unless we diversify our sales and marketing approach. So your business grows and your business changes. And even from day one, and traditional marketing or publishing, like lots of different things may work for you, but you can never go wrong making good relationships. I will say it is the long way. It
Yeah.
is not an easy payoff. Like there are times where I had to go to certain groups for 6 months to a year before I landed a client. Worth it, sort of. I mean, depending, but it's the long way. But in my opinion, it's the right quality way for my business.
Yeah. And I absolutely loved what you just mentioned there, in the fact that you sometimes had to wait 6 to 12 months to get that really good client, right? And a lot of, especially people that are starting out or early in this age, obviously, if you're a more experienced business owner, you understand that's just how it is. Unless you have a diversified approach to marketing, unless you have email campaigns going, unless you have a nurture sequence going, unless you have ads running, unless you have PPC, all these things that are going on. But it can be very difficult and overwhelming for most business owners to be able to go, okay, I'm trying to do a good job for these guys as well, and you want me to do all these other things, and I don't know how to do this, right? And that's why we go out to, for example, yourself, you provide fractional help for talent acquisition and accounting, and that would help a business owner go, okay, well, I can get people and I don't need to worry about my books. Fantastic, right?
Yeah.
In terms of sourced specifically, I guess you mentioned previously to me that one of the areas that you started off with a specific niche and kind of broadened out specifically. Is that something that you would recommend to business owners in terms of dialing down their messaging? Obviously, with your marketing background, would you recommend dialing down your messaging to a specific sector to service, or is it something that you would go, no, go more broad, bring in business first, and then find out what you're good at, what the ideal market is, and go down that direction?
So I have been advised many times to niche down. Don't have as many services, or if you're going to have as many services, stay on an industry. I don't agree with it.
Love it. Love it.
Very, very smart, lots of very smart people, smarter than I, have made that recommendation to me. So full transparency there. I love the fact that we are industry agnostic.
Hmm.
I love that I don't have to say no to a good client because they're in a different industry or their accounting looks different or we haven't done their marketing before. It's a role that we're not familiar with. I like bringing on clients that are good clients regardless of what they're doing.
Hmm.
And I've got good people who
Yeah.
can figure out the nuances. Now, my industry, back office support, is pretty standard. Like there's really one, no, there's lots of ways to do accounting. We believe there's only one way to do accounting, but you apply that to every company
Mm.
with nuances,
Yeah.
right? Same with marketing. There's only really 20 different marketing strategies,
Mm.
levers that you can pull, and then you customize it and you tailor it to the company and what
Hmm.
they need. Same with administrative support, although that's kind of like a catch-all. Fractioning, talent acquisition. I don't even know where fractioning came from. Talent acquisition. We know how to hire good people. We don't give crap what the job is because we know how to if we know the job description, we know people. We know how people tick, how they think, if they're lying to us, if they're snowing us on an interview, that could be applied to any job. But like we in our industry, we have the benefit of standardized processes. Well, we created the benefit of standardized processes
Hmm.
because we want to be industry agnostic.
Hmm.
You have more flexibility and creative license if you only do one industry because you can do that a lot of different ways and move things in and out because you understand the industry in and out.
Hmm.
For us, we prefer to do business one way, accounting one way,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we will customize it based on the client so they get what they need.
Hmm.
That gives us the ability to serve lots of different people. It gives me the ability to help and serve and say, hey, we had a client over here that did this. That might apply to you. And I know this client's in a completely different industry, but they had this problem, which is kind of similar to your problem. And like it's a lot of fun that way. So even though people that have recommended otherwise,
I know. I think it's a really great point, and I think that the kind of the message that you're constantly seeing at the moment is niche down. The riches are in the niches, and things like that. But I love the contrarian opinion you have there, because one of the things we always say when we take on a client is we want to bring in a large total addressable market, so a large TAM. You want to bring it as big as possible so you can bring in as much business as possible or as many eyeballs as possible. And you see some of the bigger accounts for example, Alex Hormozy, he is very much a marketing whiz that is specifically there to drive eyeballs for operational efficiency and marketing, right? He's opened the market as big as possible to bring himself the most. It's a natural funnel builder, right? And so it's really interesting to hear, because accounting, marketing, HR, recruiting, they're all professional services, right? So there's a layer of professional services elements that goes on with everything, which means that things can intertwine with each other and
yeah,
relate. So I think that's a really interesting way to go. Obviously, if you went down the direction of website development, that might be slightly more intricate. I think that's the word. Intricate, that's the one. But you would have to get a developer. You need to know how to code. It becomes far more difficult. But having layers to be able to feed into each other, I think that's a really smart move, to be honest.
say if I can add to that,
Yeah.
if somebody who is listening is considering their model or is considering building a model and figuring out what that looks like, the more broad you make it, the more learning you have to do to figure it out. So when you say the riches are in the niches, which is very true. It's because those people only had to really intensify their learning for one thing, one industry, one something, learn it inside and out, and then they could replicate it. The faster you can get to replication, the faster you can get to making more money because you know what works, you know how to find the people, and you just keep doing it over and over again. For us, we took the long road of we're going to say yes to a bunch of things that has taken us longer to learn how to do it and replicate it. The trade off being we don't have to turn away as much because we do a lot of things. We might have grown faster if we did niche down. That was just our choice of like, we wanted to make sure we were broad to serve a greater market. But if somebody is looking, they're like, I don't really care about serving a greater market. I just want to be successful as fast as possible. Niching down might be a better option because there's less you have to learn. It's a matter of how the person wants to build their own business.
For sure. I think again, a really interesting point because both can be successful in their own ways. It's about speed and replication, and
Totally.
makes a lot of sense. So how do you balance running multiple service lines while maintaining quality and client satisfaction? Because that I can imagine is going to be one of the biggest headaches operationally than anything else, right?
Yeah, very carefully.
Yeah.
From the beginning, it was important that we had one point of contact for our clients. If they were going to be in multiple services, which not all of them are, but if they are, we wanted them to have a layer in between the services being done, the client, to make sure that quality is protected, a relationship is built. I told you we were big on relationships. So we put account management in. That's a particular role that's been there since day one. In fact, our first account manager ever, she helped us build the business in my bedroom of my mom's house.
Wow.
She was on board before we even had a company. She helped us build it. Maureen, she is the director of account management now, and she has a team of account managers. She, in that role, built relationships with every single client. It was her job to be the relationship person, making sure that the client was happy, things were getting done, the quality was controlled, learning the processes, learning all the stuff. And that role has really been the linchpin of making sure that everything is controlled. Now we have a quality team that we know our own standards, we know processes across the board, so we have people looking at that all the time. The answer is to make sure those relationships are really strong. And when the relationship, when you kind of get this, we call them spidey sense of it not going well or the client being frustrated or whatever, that is a massive red flag. And we bring it to a meeting that we have weekly called Hot Topics, where we're talking about all of our clients. And we say, all right, we're smelling this. Let's see how we can course correct it and make sure that they're happy. And what's the problem? Let's diagnose it. Let's fix it. Do we need to change it across the company? Really, really long answer, but every client has an account manager, and their one job is to make sure that that account's successful. Period. Full stop.
I think that operationally that makes a lot of sense as well. And I've had a few conversations now doing this podcast, and I speak to a lot of business owners, and each of them say that having a good leadership team or having a good operator is so important to be able to deliver a great service. And you just proved it again in the sense that having that opportunity to be able to have someone you can lean on, rely on, who was there from the start, can massively make a huge difference.
What I learned, because Chrissy and I are really good at sales. That was really our Chrissy's good at operations. I wanted to be good at operations, and I eventually learned that it's not for me. I don't really love it. It took a lot of bumps and bruises in the first few years to really understand operations has to be tight. Like sales will come, go, like you can lean in, lean out, whatever. That operations is really, really, really important. And because we had so many different services, there was a lot that could go wrong. And we have a lot of people. There's a lot of people. People can be people in sometimes. And that happens too. So it's really important to have a good operations team that you trust.
Yeah. And you also mentioned how having really strong client relationships is one of the key factors in being able to build a strong relationship with clients and keep them in and keep them satisfied for longer. And I think that's another really interesting point because I operate my business in the same vein, right? Where it's like the relationship has to trump everything else in order to allow for everything else to come along because things take time, right? Finding the right person takes time if you're doing recruiting. Marketing takes time if you're doing everything from the start. Like everything takes time, but the results are there. But sometimes you just need to manage the client, right? And having a good relationship massively helps that. I wanted to talk about your talent acquisition side of things as well, because that I think many businesses, it's a struggle that they have, specifically getting the right type of talent, getting the right type of people into the business to be able to do the job that they need to do. Previously, we spoke, and obviously the listeners wouldn't know, but you specifically said to me you do recruiting in a different way to traditional recruiting firms.
Yeah.
Can you maybe elaborate on that and explain what your process is with talent acquisition and how you would how you bring it into most businesses? Yeah,
Love to tell you. Thank you.
no.
So, as I told you, Chrissy and I had absolutely no experience with recruiting before. We had never worked for a recruiting firm. I don't even think I never worked with one. I can't speak to Chrissy, but I knew literally nothing about the industry. So when we had this client come and they wanted us to hire, what we did is we split the recruiting role into two sections. We had a phone screen and we had a face-to-face interview. So Chrissy would call the candidates, and if she liked them, she would pass them to me, and they needed to pass my muster before they went to the client. I had the client relationship, so I kind of knew what they were looking for. We eventually blew that out a little bit bigger when we had more clients. And we said, what can happen in the recruiting industry is something called a full desk, which means somebody brings in their own deals and they try to find their candidate to fill those open roles. And sometimes there's a recruiting team that's trying to fill the roles that other people have brought in. Our model is not like that. It's we have a sales team that brings in the jobs. We have a talent acquisition team with 3 people. One person whose only job is to put resumes and people who are interested in the job into the funnel. It's called a sourcer. A lot of companies have that where they're just like fill the top of the bucket. Different person is a phone screener, where she's having that initial conversation that Chrissy used to do. And if that person blesses the candidate, then they move on to the face to face interview, and we're doing a behavioral interview. So this has nothing to do with qualifications because those have already been vetted out. This is all about culture fit. And the way that we're able to look at these candidates and say, are they a good fit, is because we meet with the clients we work with for 90 minutes before ever taking the first job. Now, we don't do that with every job. Once we know them, we know them, but we're really interviewing them and saying, what's important to you in your company? What are your values? What are red flags? What are green flags? Tell me about who was in this role before. What did you like about them? What did you not? Tell me about your company culture. And like, as if we're so we can hire as if we're in the next door building over, the next office over. And we find that method has a lot of hands in the pot, but the quality is so much better because you have multiple people, multiple opinions looking at different facets of the candidate and making sure that they're a good fit before the client even sees them. The client, by the time that they get the candidate, is like, okay, all of these people are qualified and just need to make sure that there's a connection.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's clearly, I love how thorough it is, right? And it has to be. And keeping it sounds like a very done for you service. And that 90-minute conversation beforehand massively helps. And I'm sure every business who gets those, the right recruited talent coming in and being able to interview them, as long as they're the right type of people and building that connection, that's one of the hardest parts of recruiting, right? You have to, a lot of business owners will be like, oh, I have to go through so many resumes. I have to deal with so many conversations that just aren't right.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot
absolutely.
for them.
Yeah.
And I really respect recruiters that do it on their own because it's a lot of work for one person to find the jobs, fill the jobs, have the client relationships. And in a lot of ways, it's way more profitable for companies that have just one person doing it versus we have 3 people we have to pay for. But that's the model we've chosen, and it works really well for us.
100%. Obviously, you started out your corporate career in the marketing field, and obviously you mentioned that you touched at the top of the podcast. Marketing is in corporate is very different to small business marketing, and I wanted to touch on that a little bit and ask you what are the differences that some might not know in terms of small business versus large corporate.
There's one big one, Saeed.
Mm, yeah.
Budget. I mean, these larger companies have disposable income that they have budgeted to marketing. Small businesses either don't or they're scraping a marketing budget and giving as much as they can,
Mm,
and it's not enough.
yeah.
I mean, it really, you can do so much when you have money,
Yeah.
but not all small businesses do. So in our world, we have we have had to get creative with our clients and approach them as if we were ourselves. And in a lot of ways, I'm a small business. I have the
Mhm,
exact same problems that they do when it
mhm.
comes to parting with my money for marketing, because you never know if it's going to come back in terms of ROI, right? So we've had to look at every single client and be like, all right, if this was our own money, what's the best way that we could stretch it? And what is the best way to get leads in or best brand awareness or what have you for this money? What's my highest priority? Is it my website? Is it these marketing materials? Is it sales stuff? Is it leads? Is it what is it? It is completely and utterly different. We love when we get a larger client in for marketing because they just, and we're like, we can do such great work with this
Yeah.
healthy budget. But small businesses and medium-sized businesses can't afford to do that often.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's one of the things that we always, when we take on a partner and we start working with a partner, we always frame it with the ROI, because if you're not looking at marketing budget with an ROI, then the difficulty becomes then what happens at the end. Oh, people start fearing, okay, well, I'm putting cash in. Am I going to get something in behind? And you have to look at it as a long-term investment rather than a short-term kind of results will happen now kind of thing, right? And so it's a really interesting point. Well, so in this section of the podcast, we typically like to call the entrepreneur's room. And this section is essentially a series of questions we like to ask all of our guests, just to give our viewers and listeners an opportunity to understand how business owners think. And obviously, we've spoken a lot today already, but the first question I like to ask at this stage of the podcast is, how are you currently spending your days as a leader of the business?
Okay, this is a good question. Okay, I like this section. I'm so blessed to have a strong operational team.
Hmm.
We have not always been that way. I am really, really thankful for the people that we have. So my days are spent 100% on sales, business development, and doing fun things like this. This is what I love to do. I love speaking. I love teaching and educating aspiring entrepreneurs. I love teaching other business leaders and other entrepreneurs how to run their businesses. That's my passion project that I love to do. So I love things like this. But for my day job, it is how to bring more business into Sourced.
Yeah, I love it. And this is what I always say as well, is that the leader of the business or the person at the top has to be driving sales. It's one of the most,
Yeah.
because the business is your baby, right? And so that you need to be able to be front facing and bringing that in. And obviously, once you scale and you can buy your time back and come out of the sales process if you really want to, but selling is the number one thing for sure.
Number one.
Number one. In terms of then the metrics you look at in your business, what are the most important metrics for you in the business and running the company?
Do love these questions, Said. Okay, these are so okay, so we have lots of different departments. So I'm looking at a lot of different metrics. Our two largest departments are accounting and talent acquisition, and the other three are about even.
Hmm.
So the most important metrics that we have across the board are client retention, how long that retention is, and making sure that we are not going over scope or having scope creep,
Hmm.
and making sure that we are billing for any project work if we've had scope creep. So we have to look at those
Hmm.
numbers for profitability's sake. In accounting, we want to make sure we're closing the books by the 15th of the month, giving those reports to every one of our clients by the 15th of the month, looking at some quality metrics associated with that. And for talent acquisition, we want to have a placement within 30 days. So we're looking at metrics of how many resumes are going into the bucket for sourcing, how many people are going through the funnel, how many people are getting to clients. There's a lot of metrics that go in with that. So we are able to make a hire in 30 days.
Hmm.
That doesn't always happen. It's not a hard and fast rule. We're not going to send somebody junk. And sometimes roles are just hard. Reports got to get out by the 15th of the month. We need to have a placement within 30 days or trying to be, and then making sure that our fractional clients have retention. And for that, it's a utter fail if we have somebody that is with us for 10 months or less. Usually our clients are with us for years, multiple years. And so if it's not that, we've done something wrong.
I love it. I love it, and I love that you broke it down with each of the business units because they're all different, right? And so
All
yeah,
different.
so it's a lot of juggling balls, I imagine. In terms of then the organization, obviously you've been going for 9 years, and it's grown so much since that day when you started in your mum's basement. But where do you see the business in 3 to 5 years? Where's that dream? Where would you like it to be?
Was hoping, so if you asked me this question 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it'd be like, Source is like really big. I want my name on a building. Chrissy wants a billboard. Like, we want this company to be really big. My goal is for Source to be a household name in the business space. Um, it has taken us longer to get there because we talked about going broad and serving a lot of clients, serving a lot of industries. We have a lot of different business units. So it's taken a little bit longer to do that, but we are primed right now to be able to have high scale. Right now, we're just in the funding game. So how do we infuse more cash and capital in order to scale faster now that we're ready for scalability? But our goal is to be a $50 million company. And we're not right now, but
Yeah.
want everyone who is an entrepreneur to at least have heard of Sourced, if not be working with Sourced in some capacity.
Big goals, but I love it. I always love it. And I feel like all entrepreneurs should have big goals because if you don't have big goals, then what are you striving for? I guess because you don't need to hit those big goals, but if just by having that big goal, even if you fall short, you've made it, right? You've made it better than most others. In terms of what you've been running the business for 9 years, as mentioned, and obviously you mentioned you've made a lot of mistakes and things like that. Obviously, you can't mention every single mistake you've made.
I'm sure I could. There's a lot of trauma there.
Maybe we don't have enough time then. So, what have you tried before? What didn't work? What are the biggest lessons that you could, and this could be top two that you can think of. What's the biggest lesson that you could give to the viewers and listeners today?
Okay, so the first two that come to mind, I'm going to go in chronological order.
Yeah.
Because the second one's the more important one, but I learned it too late. The first one is we're in a people business.
Yeah.
We love people. We have a really great culture, and we did that on purpose. We wanted to have a warm, thing, supportive culture for our clients, for our team. We focused on that really hard, and we kind of believed when people told us things, but we didn't trust. We trusted, but we didn't verify, and that got us into a lot of trouble. Their intentions might have been good, and in a lot of ways they were, but mentioned early on that we lost a lot of quality controls because we trusted that people said they were going to do what they were going to do, and then they didn't, or they did it wrong, or that we found out too late that there was a problem with a client or with their books or whatever because they don't know everything, or they didn't see everything, or they didn't do it at all. There was a lot of bumps in regards to trust, but verify and make sure that we had to learn the tough lesson of we want to have a good team of people, but at the end of the day, this is our business and we have to choose us every time. And if somebody isn't doing things to our standard, we're going to have to make adjustments or part ways. So that was the first big lesson. A lot of mistakes in there, as you can imagine. Once we
Yeah.
unpack that, there's probably a lot of stories in there. The second is Chrissy, my business partner, told both Maureen and I. Maureen was my account manager that I was mentioning early on. She told us from like probably year one, processes, 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 standardize everything. And we were like, every client's different. Everything's process everything. Process everything, document everything, have everyone follow the same exact process. That process doesn't work, change the process, retrain, do it again. But we went willy-nilly way too long. Way too long. Our business is a stronger, more stable company when we got really firm on this is the way we're going to do it. You're either going to play by our rules or you're not going to play at all. And with our clients, they actually really appreciate that. We didn't want to put them in a box. We wanted to follow what they were doing. Our clients didn't have processes either. So they were looking to us to have processes and everyone did it differently. So we didn't have any of our own standards. When we finally put our stake in the ground and saying, this is the sourced way of doing it, we can adjust it as needed, but this is our way. Our business got better from that.
I absolutely love that, and that I feel like that is one of the biggest challenges I have in running my own business as well. We have processes as well, but and standard operating procedures. But 100%, when you're not necessarily, I'm very much an entrepreneur, right? And so and a business owner that wants sales driven. And so having that operational lens into things can be quite tough, because you go, okay, I have to break down everything that I'm doing by minute, and then create a process around that, and then hand that off to someone else, and then trust that they will be able to do that. So they
You
have
can trust it, but you gotta
you have to verify
verify that
it.
it.
Exactly, exactly. So one of the biggest challenges is that, and I feel myself, and from the conversations I've had as well, is that business is very simple to understand, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And a lot of those difficulties come from just managing people. There's people in there that in the business where everyone wants to do good, right? And everyone wants to drive results, everyone wants to be able to do everything, but having something where it gives guidelines and holds people's hands to be able to have the best possible chance for success, that's a huge factor. So I absolutely love those lessons that you've shared there. Last question, Gabrielle. It's been a fantastic conversation, but the question I like to end every single podcast on is, if you had a magic wand you could wave to solve one business problem, what would that be? Hmm.
Get more wants. Sales. And I right now we are, first of all, I think sales is hard
Mm.
from day one to your last day. And hopefully there is no last day, unless you like buy out or whatever. But sales is always hard. And you never know what's gonna work. You never know if have to spend a lot of money, a lot of time figuring it out. We have certainly made a number of mistakes and errors just trying to figure out what our way is. What works for other people for sales has not worked for us. How much of that was us? How much of it was wrong in tactic? I would love to wave a magic wand and sales just come into this business. That sounds lovely. But
Yeah.
that's only really solid operations. If you would have asked me 3 or 4 years ago,
Mm.
it probably would have been more of an operational swing. But right now we're solid. I just want all of the people to know about us, and I just want my phone to ring like crazy, which that's not how it works.
Absolutely love it. Gabrielle, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. It's been a fantastic conversation, I feel. For our viewers and listeners, if they wanted to find you, contact you, where would they go? What would they need to do? How do they find you?
Yeah. So you can always find me on LinkedIn. Gabrielle J. Mills is the handle. And my website is getsourced.com. And you can definitely find me there.
Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. As I said a few times now, it's been a great conversation. And yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.